Hello, this is The Gaze, and you are welcome to the News Digest. Ukrainian strikes work better than entire Western sanctions, according to Budanov. Trump wants to meet Putin in Budapest. Moscow is buying time again. North Koreans flood Russia. Payment for the war is not only with money, but with territory too. Ukrainian strikes on the Russian military-industrial complex and oil and gas facilities have damaged the Russian economy and ability to wage war much greater than all Western sanctions yet, unfortunately. This was stated by the chief of Ukrainian military intelligence, Kyrylo Budanov, during the meeting with military attachés of the partner states in Kyiv.
The capabilities of the Russian military machine have been significantly reduced due to successful, far-reaching strikes by the Ukrainian defense forces on military bases, logistics centers on Russian territory, defense industrial complex enterprises, especially oil refining facilities. At the same time, the Kremlin is also increasing and scaling up missile and drone strikes on Ukrainian cities, destroying civilian infrastructure, especially critical energy facilities. The attitude of the Russian authorities to the norms of international humanitarian law is best illustrated by the living stories of Ukrainian prisoners of war and civilians who were freed from captivity thanks to our incredible efforts. Fortunately, Ukraine is not alone in its struggle. Free peoples stand shoulder to shoulder with us in its just struggle. I express my sincere gratitude to the countries for their invaluable assistance.
As a live example of Budanov's words, we report that explosions rocked Russian-occupied Crimea overnight on October 17, damaging power substations and sparking a major fire at an oil depot, according to local reports. The region's Moscow-installed governor, Sergei Aksyonov, confirmed that drone attacks struck several electrical facilities, causing widespread power outages across the peninsula. Power outages were also reported in Saki and Novofedorivka. Meanwhile, local telegram channels reported a large fire at an oil storage facility in the village of Havardiske, Simferopol district. The first explosions were heard around 2:40 a.m., shortly before flames engulfed the site. The depot reportedly belongs to Kedra LLC, which operates the largest gas station network in occupied Crimea. Despite the fire and multiple eyewitness reports, Russian occupation authorities have not officially commented on the strike on the oil facility. Also, while operating to shoot down Ukrainian drones in Crimea, a Russian Su-30SM aircraft is reported to be downed by Russian air defenses in a friendly fire act. One danger in the air less, the pilot has reportedly catapulted out of the aircraft before it crashed into the sea. A series of powerful explosions rocked the Russian-occupied city of Donetsk overnight on October 17, reportedly caused by the detonation of a large stockpile of ammunition. Videos shared by eyewitnesses captured multiple blasts and bright flashes lighting up the night sky. Moments before the explosions, several drones were spotted flying over the city. Local telegram channels began reporting the sound of drones passing overhead shortly after 2 a.m., followed by a wave of detonations. Residents were urged to stay away from windows as shockwaves rattled nearby neighborhoods. Footage from the scene suggests that the strikes targeted an ammunition depot belonging to the Russian occupation forces. The destruction of these stockpiles is strategically significant. The depletion of Russia's missile and artillery reserves directly limits the frequency and intensity of enemy shelling against Ukrainian positions and civilian areas. Samara Oblast in Russia became the target for Ukrainian drones as well. A power plant substation was hit overnight, with subsequent problems with the power grid. This goes as a grim reminder that war on energy now goes both ways, and more Russian regions will feel the results of the open aggression against Ukraine. This is the only way to make Russian society feel the need to end the war, when they start feeling the consequences for themselves. Maybe one day they will even decide they need Putin no more and give him away for the International Criminal Court prosecution. Just maybe. U.S. President Donald Trump said Thursday that he would meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest, Hungary, to discuss the war in Ukraine, after the two men had a lengthy meeting, and the Kremlin initiated, call that Trump described as very productive.
President Putin and I will then meet in an agreed-upon location, Budapest, Hungary, to see if we can bring this inglorious war between Russia and Ukraine to an end. President Zelensky and I will be meeting tomorrow in the Oval Office, where we will discuss my conversation with President Putin and much more. Donald Trump, President of the United States, on Truth Social.
The call between the two world leaders lasted nearly 2.5 hours, and as mentioned before, was held at the request of Russia. It appeared to quickly shift Trump's tone toward Russia, which has bucked his efforts to end the war. Trump later told reporters during an Oval Office event that he would meet with Putin within 2 weeks or so. He also noted in his social media post that Secretary of State Marco Rubio will lead a delegation of high-level advisors to meet with Russian officials next week, with a location to be determined, and then provided additional details to reporters later in the afternoon. Putin immediately supported Trump's idea of a planned summit in Budapest to discuss ending the Ukraine war, and the Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov said describing the call between the two leaders as highly informative and extremely frank. Some experts say that those tomahawks did their job already, and their job was not to be ever fired at Russia, but to create a window of opportunity through which a ceasefire can be seen. And it is seen now indeed. While it is a long way to go, what happened is simple. Putin has bought himself more time. Another pause, another few weeks, or as long as he needs. Each time the situation turns against him, he reaches back toward the West for another open and constructive conversation with Donald Trump. He flatters Trump, builds illusions of influence, and uses these moments to reset the narrative. It worked before, and he will likely try it again, perhaps in Budapest. The method remains the same. Endless talk, deliberate ambiguity, and constant deception, all while continuing the war against Ukraine. This is not new behavior. Putin, a product of the KGB system, relies on manipulation, control, and lies. Tactics long accepted by a society conditioned to fear freedom and reject democracy. You might like or dislike Donald Trump all you want, but he is an epitome of American democracy, as he won democratic elections. People have spoken, and so he won legitimately, and that is why Donald Trump is a president, while Putin usurped the power and held it illegally for 30 years in a row. And that is why he is a dictator, and dictator Putin will lie to President Trump again, just as he did before. Due to the expansion of North Korean labor quotas, Russia could lose control over 40% of its territory, according to Ukrainian intelligence. Moscow is paying for its assistance in the war against Ukraine, not only with oil, grain, money, and technology, but also with its own territory. Indeed, without the support of its allies, Russia would have lost the war long ago, stated Kyrylo Budanov, head of the main intelligence directorate of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. This topic will be continued by Victoria Chistyukina.
In these images, North Korean drone pilots are coordinating the fire of Russian multiple rocket launch systems targeting Ukrainian Armed Forces positions in Sumy region. Ukrainian military personnel recorded conversations between North Korean operators and Russian soldiers.
From the territory of Kursk region, these units conduct reconnaissance operations using unmanned aerial vehicles, locate the positions of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, and assist in adjusting fire on Ukrainian positions in Sumy region, from a statement by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Telegram.
Due to significant personnel losses, the Russian command continues to involve North Korean military personnel in active combat operations. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine explained, North Korean soldiers have been participating in Russia's war against Ukraine since the fall of 2024. According to South Korean intelligence, Pyongyang has sent more than 10,000 military personnel to the Federation. At least 1 in 5 of them has been killed.
Where else can Putin get ready soldiers? He could forcibly take them from Lukashenko. He has trained armies where fighters have already undergone training, have uniforms and weapons, and have been combat coordinated. Putin doesn't have such a resource within Russia. Even mercenaries from around the world, from China, Central Asia, Africa, cannot compensate for this gap.
Russia would have lost the war against Ukraine long ago if it weren't supported by its allies with resources, weapons, and manpower. The head of the main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense is convinced.
Наголошую, що Росія
I'd like to emphasize that Russia would have lost this war long ago, and Ukraine, with the help of its partners, would have reclaimed all occupied territories if it weren't for the support of the Kremlin by its allies, primarily North Korea. I want to draw attention to the unscrupulous actions of some countries. Despite international sanctions, they allow Russia to obtain weapons, ammunition, and critical components. Moreover, they permit their citizens to join the ranks of the Russian Federation's armed forces.
The North Korean dictator stated that the DPRK will expand its nuclear arsenal to, in his words, counter the military cooperation of the United States with South Korea and Japan. Such statements rely on Moscow's partnership commitments. The creation of the new North Korean intercontinental ballistic missile Hwasong-20 likely involved Russian technologies, stated the chairman of the South Korean Joint Chiefs of Staff. The missile was first showcased on October 10th at a parade. In Pyongyang, it was called, I quote, the most powerful strategic nuclear weapons system, and claimed it could strike any target on the mainland United States.
The design of the transporter erector launcher for the Hwasong-20 appeared to be different compared with the previous Hwasong-19, first fired in October last year, raising speculation the North may have received support from Russia in developing the new long-range missile amid their deepening military alignment, from a publication by Yonhap.
Russia compensates its allies not only with money, resources, and technologies, but also with its own territories. China and North Korea are gradually economically capturing Russia's eastern regions. According to Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service, China is increasing its financial influence. Beijing's investments in the Far Eastern Federal District will reach a record 1 trillion rubles in 2025. These are trade contracts, but the PRC has no plans to invest in the infrastructure of Russia's hinterland. More than 2 million Chinese citizens already live in the territory from Vladivostok to the Urals. For low prestige and heavy labor, Moscow actively recruits North Korean citizens. Over the past year, more than 15,000 workers from the DPRK arrived in the Far East, according to official data, and about 50,000 according to unofficial estimates. Russian companies have already submitted requests for 153,000 North Korean workers, reported by Victoria Chistukina, UATV News.
Thank you for standing with Ukraine. Subscribe to our channel to stay updated on what's happening around the world through the Ukrainian perspective. Goodbye.